Ramakrishna Rao, Director and Principal Architect, Interior Designer, Desi Rasu Associates and Chairman BOG 2020, GSS School of Architecture for Women, Mysore, India. He has completed his Master of Architecture from Ohio State University, USA and Bachelor's from Chandigarh College of Architecture, India. Architect D.S. Ramakrishna Rao presented papers at various international and national seminars and conferences over the last 40 years. He has won many awards: the Oman Green Championship Award 2012, Oman Green Awards, Triune 2013, Best Teacher Award, Indian Institute of Architects, Best Designer Award, Oman Medical College, New Campus Development, and the Desi Rasu Associates is the winner of Mysore Ultratech Awards 2017 for the project Sankalp Central Park Phase 2 in Mysore, India. He has many academic memberships and professional memberships to his credit. Let us now proceed to Architect D.S. Ramakrishna Rao's presentation.
We were awarded the Oman Green Champion Award for our Caledonian College of Engineering campus in Muscat and Ultratech Award for our gated community project in Mysore. I also have a research division which produces books on heritage documentation, and we've had some excellent books on Srirangapatna, on Bijapur, in Mysore. And I have these research tie-up with the University of Liverpool, INTAC, and the Aga Khan Trust for Cultural Heritage. I'm also the advisor and mentor for the GSS School of Architecture for Women. I'm also the chairman of the governing council of various schools and institutions in different parts of India. It gives me great pleasure to acknowledge this wonderful event organized by the SRM School of Architecture and Interior Design, the Icon Best, which is going to happen on 20th and 21st of this month. The genesis or the idea that they have promoted, I think, carries a lot of weight, because it then allows people from various parts of the architectural profession, whether pursuing research or architectural practice, and those of you who are alumni of his 3-decade college, all of you are going to contribute along with international speakers. And I think that makes for a great platform, not only for those 2 days, for a long time to come, because under one umbrella, we're going to have more than 60 to 75 speakers talking about various things around the world and on these 4 major topics. My hearty congratulations to Professor Satish, his team, for this wonderful initiative. I will now start my presentation, talk about architecture and allied domains, one of the areas that was there as one of the 4 units that can be spoken on. In the modern world today, architecture and allied domains are determined by business, by data, by application, and by technology. Architect Vlad Klopel in 1993 classified allied domain as site intervention and addressing serious concerns of stakeholders. Today, I'm going to talk about integrating business process with information, knowledge, key elements of organizational infrastructure, and information systems required by an architect in the Indian context. Some of it may border on to what is happening in the world, but a majority of my presentation talks about India and its traditions and the scriptures that we follow. And so, as I told you, I'm talking about architecture and allied domains. I'm going to talk about uh, the issue of classifying architecture as an envelope, that which takes everything into its fold and provides a large cap. As I told you, the initial definitions today, when you go to Google or check anything, these are some of the definitions of architectural domains. But I'm going to address this on a very different note. And my note says the fine tuning of listening, focusing, and concentrating on the solution is the most important thing. And interestingly, an amalgamation of technology, design, knowledge with human behavior, both in terms of perception and thought. This is the new mantra. So, the new mantra is integrating design knowledge with human behavior, both in terms of what you perceive and what you think. I thought I'll put this appropriate slide. On one side, we have a modern industrial housing. This was a project I did in Ranipet maybe 3 decades ago. And at that time, we still had bullocks on the road. So I thought here is technology, a little bit of heritage, and yet symbolizing something new. And what would people like, you know? Uh, Traditionally, we've been producing box-like housings. So I thought, let us introduce a change. And 2 decades later, I had gone there, and I found people are very happy with this little nice veranda overlooking the highway and all. So I call this as the new mantra. A new parameter is set in the place of the world today. The United Nations a few years ago declared a World Yoga Day, recognizing the soft power of the wonderful Indian knowledge, the soft power of it. And this wonderful Indian knowledge, whether we call it yoga or whatever, the soft power, is also mentioned very strongly in our architecture. And this thought process is called Vastu. Today, the Western world is using a terminology called geomancy, but this ancient Indian knowledge and information are now a part of the world. On your left, you will see on the slide, this was a agenda for a conference I attended in Stanford in 2019, where we began the day with a morning yoga and went on the next day with an hour of meditation, proving that this is still accepted as the form of proceeding ahead with the world in any sort of a, activity that we are doing. Now, Vastu Shastra also talks seriously about. I will go back a couple of slides to say uh, that Vastu Shastra talks about everything that is concerned with the human body. And therefore, I thought it will be very appropriate to call it an allied domain because most of you would expect me to talk about allied domain as a part of technology, which is what is there. But today, after this wonderful pandemic period, I call it wonderful because this was a time for all of us to sit back, be within the confines of our homes, and think about what is happening around us, especially in the field of architecture. And this set a trend for thinking that we have now got time to bring out the tradition of our country and practice it when the Western world is also starting to recognize it. This to me is the beginning of the soft power of the Indian architecture. This whole concept of yoga, meditation, vastu, what they now term as geomancy, a new allied domain. And we are within our educational infrastructure are not bringing it into the curriculum. For whatever reason, today, a lot of academicians who are listening to me may wonder at what I'm saying. But almost all universities in our country today, all organizations offering architectural education, do not think it necessary to introduce Vastu Shastra in its science, not in its dogmatic belief, in its science as a very important part of what we are doing. And so look at it, our history from the ancient days talk about Mansara, the oldest town planner of the world, who established norms for settlement planning, which are so valid today. He created settlements along rivers and ensured that the waste from the settlement do not go into the river. And today, with all the technology available to us, we are just polluting our rivers and our natural resources. And when we go a little ahead in terms of time from Vedic times and come ahead, you wonder at how they built these beautiful temples and impossible to access forts on mountain tops. Where was the technology? Where was the knowledge? Uh, the whole world may argue that no, they used manpower, they used slaves, they used whatever. Yet they achieved the results. Can we look at the positive side of it? Today, if there's a large scale construction activity in the world, we also use workers. We call them with whatever nomenclature we like, yet the process remains the same. So let's try and understand what was the science behind it. I don't want to call it technology because technology is a very new word. I want to understand the science behind it. And it is that which we must now bring into our architectural curriculum, because if you stimulate interest at the undergraduate level, then we are talking about something good. So I want to say, fine tune the art of listening, focusing, and concentrating on the solution. Can we fine tune our knowledge with us? Look at this famous anecdote from Mahabharata. All of you would have heard it a number of times, that how Guru Dronacharya asked his disciples and said, "What do you see on the top of the tree?" Everybody answered this and that. Only Arjuna said, "I can see the eye of the bird on the tree." Can we take some lessons? Can we have some takeaway from this? So let's try and fine tune our process of listening, understanding, creating an integrated and holistic approach, good design practices, utilize the technology that we have, ensure efficient operations, and good housekeeping so that what we create lasts forever. And finally, the greatest input will be the user education and awareness. And that is where I'm emphasizing that we bring this allied domain into our architecture so that we can create excellent products for today's world. Now, I've been talking about excellent product in today's world. I use the word product because we need a synergy of professionals. May it be the builder, the quantity surveyor, the engineer, the client, or the architect. Everybody needs to work. And in this ethos, in this progress of a project, the architect plays the key role of putting these allied experts together. And that to me is another important thing that we must look at it as an allied domain. Some people have started these courses. Some institutions offer courses on construction management, on project management. But in my talk on this allied domain, call it personal science and technology development. If we can achieve a good development where we can put everybody together, where neither the contractor nor the builder are the enemies of the architect, nor is the client supreme in terms of saying, I'm spending the money, so do what I want. We have to achieve a synergy. And so I thought, let me put a photo, an image of a very efficiently created home with all its, you know, uh, plus points in terms of today's climate, today's green technology, uh, today's eco-sustainable living. All this can be achieved when we work as a group and create uh, matrices, create models which will enable us to convert our data into application model with the use of technology, and looking back and finding out how did they do projects at that time. What was the synergy in our olden days? Can we replicate it? What else can be added? I'm very reminded of a very interesting incident uh, which I had read in the ancient books on architecture, that the kings of the olden days had a little place like what we call as Darbar or the Lok Sabha or the People's Court, where people could come with their complaints and their anger. And what they did is the architects of those good days, good old days, designed these Darbar halls or People's Court 100 meters away from the main road or from where you approached. So people had to walk these 100 meters or so. And these 100 meters or so were walking through a beautiful garden with lovely fountains and somebody offering sharbat, something to cool you. So by the time they walked the 100 meters, a part of their anger already went down. So look at how they used a simple sociological behavioral pattern into bringing them into the place where they could voice their complaint and yet make sure that their anger is cooled down and whatever fury they came with is softened a little bit. Have we forgotten this knowledge? No, we are not. It's just that we need to take these forward and start using this data to our today's technology. So I take over from this last point to something called behavioral architecture, which even though in 1980, I studied it when I was doing my master's at Ohio State, but even today I find that a lot of institutions do not offer this. And there are only people who are doing PhDs or uh, some advanced studies in this. And that mystery of behavioral architecture is not solved up to now. And somebody narrated a beautiful incident to me about how software offices are slowly becoming not software but suicide offices, because you're making youngsters who are just out of institutions, colleges, the time when they have to be having social interaction, spending Friday evenings out and relaxing on Saturday, Sunday. They are working 24/7, 365 in 4 feet by 5 feet cubicles and interacting with people they don't know, somebody in Norway or North America or Sweden or South America, yet solving their problems, helping them out of crisis, telling them how to handle their new television or refrigerator or whatever. How then are we going to protect these people from these behavioral patterns which are being established? You make them work long, you keep them confined except that they earn a lot of money to be confined within that. So it's not enough. Then I'm reminded of a wonderful anecdote narrated to me by my professor who was teaching us behavioral architecture. He said a huge shipping company in San Francisco with beautiful offices and photographs of ships all over the office, facing something called Pier 39, which is one of the busiest piers in the San Francisco harbor. And everything in the office reminded people about ships at the sea. And I'm talking about a time when we had no computers and they had a teleprinter in the middle of the office, centrally placed, where every employee can track his or her ship movements, find out where a particular ship is, what cargo is being taken, etc. But there was a general slowdown in work. People are not very happy in spite of having wonderful chairman on the top who would give them money, give them holidays. So the chairman called the behavioral architect and said, listen, give me, here is a blank check, and said, put whatever amount you want, but please change the mood and patterns of thinking in my office. The architect just wrote an amount of $25 and said, I don't need your millions, and put up a picture of footprints in the desert. I wish I could have shown that photo to you. It's just a blank desert with 4 steps in it. This immediately changed the mood in the office. And everybody said, wow, there is a place where there's no water in the world. We are tired of ships and sea. And all it required was understanding the sociological behavior of people. So to me, this makes a very good allied domain because it's a part of what we do, yet we have to understand their behavior and put yourself in the place of the end user and say, if I was sitting there, what would I do? So from this behavioral pattern, I again come back to the world of Vastu because it is now being practiced by people who are not qualified like us, who just talk about frightening people. They take advantage of people's mind pattern and say, listen, if you don't do this, this will happen. But let's just study it once and understand that the original Vastu Shastra, it's a Shastra, it's a science originated from the science of building with our 4 directions, the 4 key elements, earth, water, air, and fire, and putting them together that the right place for the right element would give enough comfort to people. They understood wind directions. They understood placing of openings. Why then do we not translate this with so much of technology available into something that we can use every day and put it as a mandate to every building? The minute you design a building, bring a matrix of Vastu and overlap it on that and see how it conforms to that. Not in terms of placing your toilet in some direction, but in terms of overall wind comfort, overall human entry comfort, overall comfort of people who live and work there. I can go on, but I will confine myself. And I just thought I would slowly bring it to a point where we start looking at history and see the amalgamation of styles which history created. Here is a sample of the palace in my city, Mysore, and which has also been serving as the capital of the kings. Tipu Sultan was involved. So many things have happened. And so I thought, let me take you onto a heritage platform and show you how different styles were blended together. You look at the main palace, you look at the building at the back, you look at the gate, and you find 3, 4 different styles which so blend so well together. Where did this knowledge come? Did our ancient architects, did the people who create this, did they have 3D modeling? Did they have walkthrough images? They conceived all this and then put it together, confident that this can be taken forward. A very important allied domain, in my opinion. Okay? And so the Westerners, the history of the Western world makes us believe that our whole built forms in the context of the larger India, which it was, originated from Mahabharata. But I spoke to you about Mansara, the Vedic planner, which was a few thousand years before Mohenjo-daro. So we were very clear. We knew about yesterday. We know what is happening today. So let's put all this to take us to tomorrow. This brings me to my last element. I call it documentation of information. The art of documentation of past and present for the future, a new allied domain in architecture. The world over, we are bemoaning the systematic destruction of our heritage ecosystem and the ozone layers above us. Why have we reached this stage? Why has the world not looked back into history and say that this world existed and allowed human beings to flourish? No SARS, no Corona, because the ancients understood the significance of systems, passed it on from one generation to the other, and understood that nature must be kept in good shape all the time to keep the world alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ramakrishna Rao, for your insightful presentation. I'm certain that the audience have found it to be a very informative presentation. And now we shall take a short break for our sponsor video, post which we shall proceed to our next speaker, Architect Manoj Mathur.